All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And as always, thank you for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up. Seems some people maybe are going to be coming to the stream a little bit later than usual, which is understandable because we were doing a member stream a little bit earlier. So I basically didn't give people as much time to be notified of the stream. So I do apologize about that, but I see a few of you guys talking in the chat about the Morning with the Misses episode, saying how much you liked it. Well, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the support, and I'm really, really glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I had a good time too, so I appreciate it, guys. But I'm going to hope that there are no technical difficulties today with the stream. Yesterday's stream, the first stream I put out, got cut short because I was having a lot of technical difficulties and it took about an hour to fix those. So hopefully everything is smooth sailing today. I guess we'll see how it goes. Michael Lynch coming in with a $5 super chat says, Project Latitude, my blank should be called Project Ineptitude. Boom. Michael Lynch flexing on Microsoft. I mean, it's a bit aggressive, Michael. I don't know that I completely agree, but we will be having a mostly Xbox-centric discussion today. A lot of what we're going to talk about does pertain, in a way, directly to PlayStation, but we're going to be talking a lot about Xbox, and I do want to nip this in the bud really early here because I know that it's going to be brought up, and so I just want to acknowledge it now. And to anybody who's in the chat now, if you happen to see people mentioning this later on, please let them know that I already addressed it and that we talked about it. But yeah, we are going to be talking about Xbox, and I'm just going to make it known that we're going to be talking more about Microsoft and the Xbox side of things, as well as things like Nintendo and just more generally, general gaming related stuff as well. I think it's more than obvious that, PlayStation is where I play. That's what I mostly want to cover. That is what I like to cover the most. But yeah, there are going to be plenty of times where we talk about, the other platforms, games outside of PlayStation games, and so on and so forth. And today is one of those days. So just wanted to address that right up front. But yeah, let me give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be discussing today. So the first thing is a rumor that popped up about Project Latitude and what's going on with that. But on top of that, we also have Microsoft CEO seemingly addressing it. If not, he's not directly addressing the rumor, but he's letting us know. He's letting us know what Microsoft's approach is, finishing up and wrapping up 2024, going into the next fiscal year, what we can expect. And we're also going to be talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It did launch today. It also launched into GamePass. It's the first time ever that a brand new Call of Duty game is launching directly into a subscription service. So we're going to talk about what some analysts had to say. We did cover this at the very tail end of yesterday's stream, but it was kind of like a bonus topic that wasn't, it didn't necessarily take priority because it had come out at the very end. So I want to have a deeper discussion about that as well. But guys, listen, before we dive deeper into this conversation and into the topics, I do, again, just want to thank you for tuning in live. If you are somebody who can't catch the streams live, but you watch them later on, I also want to make sure that I express my gratitude for that. I do appreciate that viewership and that support. I want to ask you guys to take a moment to please hit that like button. We're currently sitting at 36 likes. I want to see us push for 50 likes and then go to 75 and then 100. It really helps the streams. It lets me know you enjoy the content, and it helps with YouTube's algorithm. I want to let you know as well a couple of ways you can support the channel, the content, and the community directly. We are completely fan-funded here. We don't do sponsorships. It's purely just you guys sponsoring the channel, making this content possible, and driving the community. So number one, consider becoming a channel member. You gain access to exclusive perks such as the Members Lounge as well as Morning with the Misses. Now, I don't have Morning with the Misses listed as a perk. I have to actually update that. But we just did a new episode of Morning with the Misses this morning. It's an hour and a half long. Basically, I guess like a mini podcast with me and Mrs. MBG. And a lot of you guys seem to really thoroughly enjoy that. And a lot of you seem to have had a really good time tuning into that. So again, if you are a channel member, go check that out. If you're not a channel member, consider becoming one so you can gain access to some of this exclusive members content. The second way you can support is by gifting memberships. A lot of people maybe can't afford the memberships, or it's, just not something they're maybe aware of yet, as in like the content. So if you gift a membership and they receive it, they can check out the content, see if they like it, see if they want to, remain part of the member community here. We're going to strive for a goal of 25 members. If we hit 25 members, I will be feeding the beast. I will be giving Boss and Luna their treats. And for every 25 members gifted, I also gift 5 back to you as a thank you. The third way is dropping a super chat like Michael Lynch has done here. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement. And the fourth way is a direct donation link at the top of the chat. You can, it's basically like a super chat, but 100% of what you donate goes to the content creator. So thank you guys so much for making this possible. Michael Lynch with the $2 chat says, so what did you think of the new movement system? So yeah, I am playing Call of Duty right now, and I like it. It feels very smooth. I think I'm getting better with it. I'm beginning to realize that you don't necessarily need to take full advantage of the new movement system to play competently, but if you can utilize it in certain scenarios, it can give you a little bit of an advantage. And especially when you figure out how to take advantage of the dive mechanic, you can dive backwards, you can dive sideways. And it's kind of difficult as of right now because I'm just not used to having this mechanic in first person shooters or, in Call of Duty games. But overall, it is pretty good. I have to say. Sorry, my chat seems to have crashed here. Let me fix this. But I'll probably talk a little bit more about my thoughts on what I've played of Call of Duty so far once we talk about the impact that Call of Duty may or may not have on GamePass. So, yeah, I'm worried about that too. I noticed that as well. I thought it froze as well, but I think we're good. I hope we're good. I'm assuming everything's okay, and we can dive into the first topic of discussion. We good? I think we're good. All right. We're good to go. Okay. So we're going to dive into the first topic here, which talks about a new rumor that just recently came out from a relatively reliable source. And this has to do with Project Latitude. For those who are unaware, although I think most of you are aware, what is Project Latitude? It is essentially Microsoft's multi-platform initiative. It is them embracing the PlayStation ecosystem as well as the Nintendo Switch ecosystem. And they, as we all know, they ported 4 games over, one of which did very well, that being Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves was quite a success on the PlayStation 5. And we found out not too long after that internally this project is known as Latitude. And ever since, we've been getting these different rumors. And also, a lot of players have been kind of wondering, like, what is going to happen, right? What can we expect with Project Latitude? Should we expect the whole slate? Is it just going to be trickled out one by one? Is it going to speed up? Is it going to slow down? Is it going to end? Well, I'm going to go over the initial rumor here that came out late yesterday. This is being reported by WCCF Tech, and it says Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S to PlayStation 5 ports have been slowed down following the reception of the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle's quick PlayStation 5 port, according to rumors circulating online. Speaking on X, Ecstasis, who proved to be somewhat reliable in the past, commented on the ports, saying that according to the latest information in their possession, the ports have not been canceled, but have been slowed down. This was caused by the bad reception of the quick Indiana Jones and Great Circle PS5 port, which is coming only a few months after the game's debut on the Xbox Series consoles and PC. In addition, replying to an earlier rumor that started circulating online earlier this week, the Halo and Gears of War series continues to be a red line that Microsoft is not going to cross at the moment, so we shouldn't expect to see them on PlayStation anytime soon. Now, I also want to let you know that the reason why this individual, Ecstasis, decided to divulge this information, this insider information, it was in response to a different rumor that actually popped up on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit a couple of days ago. And the rumor that popped up says, rumor, PS5/PS5 Pro versions in development for Fable, Gears of War E-Day, Perfect Dark, Avowed, Blade, Halo, etc. And this initial rumor actually came from the individual known as Mag with 2 A's, who is part of the Crossfire and I think XNC podcast. He claims that according to his sources, I don't know how reliable he is. I don't know if you should believe him or not. I think he also gave a rumor about GTA in the past. Who knows if it's accurate? He's saying that all of these games, all of these major games, Halo, Perfect Dark, Fable, Avowed, Gears, they're all currently in development for PS5 as well as the PS5 Pro. Now, this initial rumor, again, is what prompted Ecstasis to divulge this information, pretty much saying, well, not confirming specific games, but saying that the Project Latitude is slowing down. They're actually calming it down, and it's something that Microsoft's not going to be as aggressive with. So basically what Ecstasis is saying is kind of the opposite of what Mag is saying. Mag is saying that, I mean, basically, in in so many words, the whole slate, the whole upcoming slate are being optimized for PS5 and PS5 Pro. So Ecstasis is saying, no, it's going to be much slower than that. So on top of all of this, we actually have Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He did not respond to these rumors. Of course, the CEO is not going to respond to the rumors. But interestingly enough, he did give an investor's update for the 2024 fiscal year. And based off of what he had to say, it certainly doesn't seem like Microsoft is going to be slowing down with Project Latitude anytime soon. And so I'm going to let you know what Satya Nadella had to say. So let me bring this up here. There's actually a report from Push Square that says Microsoft CEO says more Xbox games will come to PS5 hours after rumors said that the porting project was pausing. Says the ongoing will they, won't they story surrounding Xbox and its plans to release some of its games on rival platforms continues apace after some dubious online rumors. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella appears to have inadvertently nullified rumors that this strategy is slowing down. A leaker who goes by Ecstasis recently claimed that Project Latitude, Xbox's plan to release first-party titles on Nintendo and Sony platforms, is, quote, paused or slowed down, end quote. They claim the reason for this is the sour response to the news that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming to PS5 shortly after Xbox. However, Satya Nadella, in a wider report about Microsoft's fiscal year 2024, seems to suggest the company's approach has not changed. And so I want to actually read to you what Satya Nadella said in his report. I just have to bring it up so I can give it to you word for word. Satya Nadella says, hold on. He says, gaming, and he published this on October 24th. We are bringing great games to more people on more devices with our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which closed October 2023. We've added hundreds of millions of players to our ecosystem. We now have 20 franchises that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, from Candy Crush, Diablo, and Halo to Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, and Gears of War. And with Xbox Cloud Gaming, we continue to innovate to offer players more ways to experience the games they love, where, when, and how they want. Finally, we brought 4 of our fan favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time as we continue to extend our content to new platforms. That is the official write-up from Satya Nadella yesterday, October 24th, to the shareholders. And I don't know about you guys, but based off of what he says here, it doesn't sound like they're planning on slowing down anytime soon with Project Latitude. I would imagine if that was their plan, maybe they would have nixed the last part there at the end. But instead, they're actually highlighting it and flexing it for the investors. And in my opinion, the only reason they would think to do something like that is because, well, they're planning on doing more and they want the investors to be excited for it. So it's not a huge update. It's not Microsoft explicitly stating, yeah, we're bringing Halo to PlayStation. No, that's not what they're doing. But I have something I want to discuss with you guys about the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle reveal and why I think there could be some truth to this rumor. Because again, it's not like Satya Nadella just came out and said, no, guys, don't believe the rumors. It's not true. He's not acknowledging the rumors. Why would he? He's the CEO of Microsoft. But I do think that we can look at the way in which Indiana Jones was announced for PS5. We can look at the reaction online, and maybe we can surmise that maybe Microsoft is going to not necessarily pivot their Project Latitude strategy overall, because that's a wider company-based strategy, right? It's something that Microsoft upper executives, it's something they want. But what it might do is let us know that maybe they're going to have to be a little bit more intentional and careful about how they decide to announce these things. Michael Lynch with another $5 super chat says, it behooves Xbox to put everything on PS5. It's the only way they can make a lot of sales. I think it depends on what Microsoft's end goal is for, I think, each franchise and each game. I think the way Microsoft maybe views it at this point is like, look, we have so many different games and so many different franchises that we can kind of pick and choose. The bigger, heavy hitters, maybe we make sure they're multi-platform so we can maximize sales and we can't risk having them struggle. Maybe the smaller or just, not necessarily the juggernaut franchises, maybe those they decide to hold off. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Microsoft wants to try to continue to leverage their big hitters as a way to get people not only over to Xbox, but into GamePass. And then later on, they'll come to other platforms. But I understand where you're coming from, Michael. It is true that the reason why Microsoft is even in the position they're in right now is because they've struggled a bit, with maybe a lot in some ways, with game sales, with making their ecosystem seem like the go-to ecosystem you want to get invested in. We've been covering this for many years, and now more than ever, looking at just how much Xbox console sales have struggled over the last year, you may be right. I mean, this is something that, the Microsoft executives are absolutely paying attention to, and they need to be mindful of when they decide, like, how aggressive do we want to get with Project Latitude? Waylark with the super chat. Thank you, buddy. You're saying it's going to be a timed exclusive, then 6 months to PlayStation. Pretty straightforward, unless it's games that already were multi-platform like Doom, so day and date. I think that's certainly a possibility, and maybe something like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle gives us a better indication, but it almost seems like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle would have been day and date with PS5, but it just simply wasn't ready, right? I think it was kind of like a last minute decision. At least that's my read on it. It was a last minute decision where it's like, yeah, we're gonna make this multiplat. Like, we are going to release this on PS5 because that's how we're going to maximize sales. But they weren't really working on the PS5 version at the same time when they started development on the Xbox version and optimizing it for the Xbox version. And so because of that, I think they had no choice but to basically come out and be like, guess what? We are bringing it to PS5 like 4 months later, or maybe it will. Maybe you're right. Maybe it will be exactly 6 months. We don't have, as far as I'm aware, we don't have a specific month for when Indiana Jones is launching on PlayStation 5. They said spring, so it could be exactly 6 months, right? From, could be like late May or something. I see somebody asking, what is Project Latitude? Project Latitude is the internal name of Microsoft's multi-platform initiative to bring games to PlayStation and Nintendo. And that could be the way they decide to do it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. And honestly, I would be totally fine if that's the approach that they want to take. I'd actually be like, yeah, that's great. For example, a game like Indiana Jones, I'm not sure yet if I'm going to play that day one or at all, but it, just knowing that December rolls around, it's releasing for anybody on Xbox or PC. I play on PS5. 6 months later, you'll be able to play it. I mean, I have no problem waiting 6 months. Even if it's a game I really, really, really want to play, if it's like a clear-cut thing, like 6 months. The thing is, though, if Microsoft were to take that approach where it's like, we're going to make it like a 6-month thing, and we're going to, like, that's going to be the definitive pattern for Project Latitude, at that point, you have to ask yourself, like, well, does it really make a difference? If you make 6 months the hard cutoff, and I think because of that, Microsoft is going to continue to keep people kind of guessing in the same way that Sony does to PC. Sony is never really giving you an upfront, definitive, end-all, be-all answer where this is what you can expect on PC to a T, like clockwork. Sony will not do that because they know it's in their best interest to not do that. And so I think Microsoft realizes that, yeah, it's also not in our best interest to do that either. But here's something I want to say. If Microsoft's ultimate plan here is truly to go eventually full multi-platform in the sense that we're going to get the money from PlayStation, we're going to get the money from Nintendo, and we're going to do that for pretty much all of our games. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If they reveal their hand eventually, like that is what they're doing, then there will really be minimal reason for them to, continue to do the timed thing. Only if it's like a year, maybe. I just don't know how many people you're really going to move at that point. I don't know how many people you're going to move aggressively into your ecosystem if you very clearly communicate the message that if you just wait like 6 months, a year, it'll be yours. That's why it's interesting to see what Sony's doing with Spider-Man 2, because, there are two different camps of people. On one side, you have players saying, well, I guess that's it. Sony's making it clear that if you're on PC, you just got to wait about a year at this point, right? Just wait a little over a year and you'll get it. Other people are, like a lot of PlayStation fans, maybe not just PlayStation fans, but people are making the argument that no, just because we're seeing Spider-Man going to PC in about a year, that doesn't mean you can expect every game going forward to go to PC in about a year. But at the same time, like, you can't blame people for thinking, well, if Spider-Man 2 is going to come to PC in a year, I guess I can expect the same thing for Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei. And maybe you can. I mean, think about it. Spider-Man 2 goes to PC in January. What about, well, I don't know about Astrobot, but let's say Death Stranding, right? Death Stranding comes out April of next year or May of next year. And then it releases on PC May 2026, 1 year later. At that point, people are going to be like, okay, well, that's it. It's a year, timed exclusive, right? But Sony's got to be careful, because if they reveal their hand, It's like the same, Sony and Microsoft are kind of in the same boat right now, just in a different order with different platforms. They reveal their hand and they show you that pattern, then it kind of it's gonna make people who otherwise would have said, well, I don't have the answer, so not having the answer is what's gonna make me go to them. They lose that. Jerry A with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. Says PS5 Pro pre-order, disk drive secured, Samsung 990 Pro 4TB SSD secured. We ready for the world's most powerfully full home console. I love the way you worded that, Jerry. For the world's most powerfully full home console. Well, you're good to go, Jerry. I got my stuff here. We're just counting down the days at this point, right? I got to admit, the closer we get to the PS5 Pro, the more excited I get for it. I know that, again, there's a lot of naysayers and haters out there, but I can't deny that I'm excited for the new hardware, man. I am. I hope it delivers, and it seems like it's going to. So I'll be there, Jerry. I'll be there launch day. Waylark with a super chat as well. Thank you, Waylark. You're saying we know this. Microsoft puts it out there already. If you want a console, okay. If you don't, okay. Buy our games from us, okay. Buy your games from PlayStation Store, Steam, okay. This is true. This is true, Waylark. But, well, I guess what I mean to say is it's mostly true. Should we, I'm not going to say would, should we truly dig in and assume that Microsoft, with the next generation Xbox console, that they might not, should we assume that there's 0% chance they're going to get very aggressive all of a sudden? And they're going to rally around and say, you know what, we might not be able to do true exclusives anymore, but we do get to pick and choose. We do get to decide when and how. And because of that, we also have more studios than the competition. We have more IP than the competition. We have everything, right? We're in the best position we've ever been in to succeed. Not just from a publishing standpoint, not even just for Game Pass, but for console too. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, do we truly assume that this multi-trillion-dollar corporation that has put this level of investment into their brand, that they don't maybe, just maybe, have one last card up their sleeve that they're planning on playing come November 2026? We get out there a year ahead of Sony. We have a very capable, powerful console, but not a very expensive console. Maybe it will only be $500. It'll be more powerful than the Series X. I mean, that seems unlikely. A $500 next-gen Xbox, the Pro is $700. But maybe Microsoft says, screw it. We're just going to sell it at a lower price point. I mean, I'm going into speculative territory, of course, but the reason why I think well, let me put it to you this way, Waylark. The thing I'm more interested in, because when it comes to Microsoft's next-gen plans, they're going to do what they're going to do. They might just be like, yeah, bro, they're just going to spit out the Xbox console. Like, this is our next-gen machine. This is what it does. This is how much it is. I guess buy it if you want. If not, please just subscribe to Game Pass. If not, just please buy our games. I will admit, right now, that seems much more likely. But I just still think that Microsoft, they should not be underestimated. I think that would be the biggest mistake Sony or Nintendo could make, where I've seen people talk about the idea that like competition is dead, but is it? Should these other companies embrace that notion that the competition is dead? Because if they do that, well, you're letting your guard down. Not only are you letting your guard down, but you're getting comfortable, you're getting relaxed. And at the end of the day, I think no matter how much we want to believe competition is dead, I think at the end of the day, something that remains true is every one of these companies wants to be top dog and they want to be number one and they don't want to have a close competitor. That I think we do know. And Waylark with another super chat. Thank you for all the support, Waylark. You're saying 0% chance they do anything next gen. Wouldn't be surprised if they scrap that idea. We bashed them for doing nothing for 20 years, and you now think they're planning something. LOL, nah. Well, here's what I'm trying to articulate, Waylark. And maybe this will help better paint the picture. It's not that I think they're in some kind of like scheming planning phase, like wait until Sony lets their guard down and then we strike. It's the Xbox 360 all over again. But I'm saying this could be something that happens organically. Well, as organically as it can. Something more naturally, where between now and the lead up to the PlayStation 6, Sony maybe continues to frustrate fans, or they're just kind of like back and forth, where like one step forward, one step backward. They're like trying their best to maintain their footing while still trying to grow the brand and maintain their lead and everything, and be at the forefront of the console. While they're doing this, we look at what Microsoft is doing. Microsoft is acquiring publishers. Microsoft is putting their games day one in the Game Pass. Yes, Microsoft is raising the price of Game Pass, but everybody's okay with it because it's still not that expensive. $20 for everything you're getting. Oh, well, a lot of people do like that, right? Regardless of my opinion on it, it's clear that Microsoft is setting up. Microsoft has made it so that they will succeed no matter what in at least one direction. If they can't succeed with the console, that's okay. We can try to succeed with Game Pass. If we can't succeed with Game Pass, that's okay because we can succeed as a third-party publisher. And at the end of the day, that's the end game. That's the I guess you could say worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is Game Pass falls, console falls. We're just a mega third-party publisher and we rake in billions of dollars from all our franchises. Not a bad plan C, right? But I think that's what I'm trying to say is like, if Microsoft, if they continue to have good showcases, if they continue to, I guess you could say, if they can be consistent between now and the next Xbox console, they could very well go into the next gen console and just be like, yeah, guys, here it is. And aren't you excited to play Gears of War E-Day on it and subscribe to Game Pass and enjoy these next gen features and stuff? Aren't you? And if they do, they might, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it reminds me of the philosophy of when you stop trying is when you will find your success. I mean, I am a believer in that to a degree where that has happened, that does happen, and it would be just so kind of funny in a way if we reached a point where Microsoft made it clear that we're just not trying to really compete in the console space aggressively anymore. It's just a thing we're going to do and whatever. And, we'll go out there sooner because we got to get a move on. The series consoles are falling. And then what if it turns out that people are like, yo, this is great, and they start kind of flocking to it. And like Microsoft's looking at it and like, yo, this is going better than we thought. I feel like that would make Sony sweat a little bit. But I do agree with you, Waylark, that I do not think there's some kind of nefarious scheming plan here that Microsoft is going to come out. Because that sounds like, I think, a bit of delusion there. But I just think that at the rate things are going, where, Sony is trying to navigate a time of change in their own way. And a lot of the things that Sony's doing, at least just based off of what I can see anecdotally speaking, a lot of those things people are not necessarily on board with. And I don't know that Sony's losing as many people as it seems. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But for every person, for every PlayStation fan or every just gamer that Sony maybe turns off, right, because of a one decision or two decisions or a couple of decisions throughout the year, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for Microsoft. That's an opportunity for Nintendo. That's an opportunity for Steam. And I just think that when we talk about Project Latitude, when we talk about what Satya Nadella is saying about their approach, I get this feeling that Microsoft is attempting to, like I said, they're attempting to find big success in multiple lanes. Lane one, third-party publishing, boom. You're going to get that success. You're getting it right now with Call of Duty Black Ops 6. So that's lane number one secured. Lane number two, Game Pass. Well, we don't have the answer to that yet, but they're still trying and they're still committed to it. So they clearly believe they're going to find that success in lane two as well with Game Pass. Boom. Successful subservice on top of your third-party publishing. And then lane three would be the hardware space, the console space. That's where I feel like they're having the least amount of success. Therefore, they're showing the least amount of commitment. But I think they might just be waiting for, not waiting, but if the right opportunity presents itself, like we just caught wind that Sony's not releasing the PlayStation 6 until 2028. We also learned it's going to be $700. Maybe Microsoft is already anticipating that. Maybe Microsoft caught wind that the PS5 Pro is going to be $700. Maybe Microsoft is watching the reaction to the Pro. Maybe they think Sony's getting a bit complacent. Maybe they think Sony's just kind of like, well, you know what? Yeah, maybe we'll just have a really expensive PlayStation 6 and that'll be that, because there ain't no way Microsoft's making a comeback from this. Again, I don't think they're going to do it. Microsoft is a company that also wants to make money. They're not trying to give you, they're not trying to eat $200 or $300 on every console sold. They really are not trying to do that. But we will see. Perfect Image with the $2 chat says, what if Xbox brings machine learning, DIs, FSR, etc. to win? I mean, if you're from a technical standpoint, there are definitely things I think Microsoft could bring to the table that, here's what I'll tell you, Perfect Image. If there's something that I have witnessed firsthand, and it's taken me a long time to kind of realize that this is a thing, dude, that happens all the time. It's that people, especially now in today's day and age, with how fast the internet moves, comebacks can be made very easily under the right circumstances. Like one day, you will see people attempting to crucify something and burn it to the ground. The next day, everybody seems to be fine with it. Now, obviously, it doesn't work literally on a 24-hour cycle. We're talking on a time frame of years. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you see a company make a decision that seems like, well, that was a really bad decision and that really hurt you guys, and it basically caused the demise of so-and-so thing. Realistically, all it takes is if they can do a 180 in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, by the time the fourth year rolls around, by the time the fifth year rolls around, whatever, but when they're ready to show you the 180, people will come back. People will forget. They will forgive and they will forget. And there are always going to be those people that don't. But this is where I'm saying, like, the dumbest thing, the worst decision you can make as a leader of any of these companies is to underestimate your opponent, no matter how out of the game they seem like they are. Out of the race, out of the fight. Do not underestimate, because that's when you look in your rearview mirror and you realize, holy shit, they're about to pass me. That's something I've learned, man, in just kind of watching how all of this has went down over the not even just the past couple of years, but the decades, right? And Waylark, appreciate all the super chats, buddy. I really do appreciate that support. You're saying every decision they made over the past year is killing their console. Seems to be very intentional. Microsoft will just go software, avoid hardware. And you also say here, I get that a comeback is great for content, but it is not happening with Xbox. LOL. More of a chance of Sega coming back. Well, yeah, that's a good call out, Waylark, because we do have to acknowledge that there are those times where it's like something just dies. And Sega is representative of that, right? The Dreamcast is representative of, like, sometimes it just, but yeah, I mean, I think that internally at the Xbox division, I think Team Xbox secretly believes they can have the comeback. But I think Team Xbox is not able to convince Satya Nadella, Amy Hood, and every other board member of Microsoft of this. I think that they would get laughed out of the room, because it's like, what are you talking about? Like, we can make the most money just by publishing, you know? But as long as Phil Spencer's still the leader of the gaming division, I'm telling you, man, Phil, I think people forget about this, but Phil made it clear in an interview years ago that he wants to be number one. You know, like, he wants to win the console race. Nobody really talks about that interview. Nobody really talks about that quote, because I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that relevant and people's minds can change. But I always found that interesting, because it's like, of course. Like, of course you want that. Like, why wouldn't you want that? Like, you are the head of Xbox, dude. You've been with Xbox since the beginning. You understand, like, what this brand was built on. So, of course, he wants Xbox to be number one. But he's also a company man, right? He's also the head of Microsoft Gaming. So he also has to consider Microsoft's ambitions and what Microsoft considers the barometer of success. Ahoy Tyler is saying MBG, they can have the biggest comeback ever, but that doesn't change the fact that people have built up their digital libraries for 2 generations now and won't just jump over so easily. That's true. And I do keep forgetting about that reality when I talk about this potential comeback. I don't know. Maybe there's a part of me that is kind of, in a way, rooting for Xbox in a sense, just because, I mean, it would be pretty epic, I think, to see the next generation get off to a much hotter start than what we saw this generation. The build up to the PS5 was incredible, and the launch of the PS5 was incredible, but things seem to have petered out pretty quickly, generally speaking, in terms of competition, in terms of, you know, the shortages and cross-gen versus what's actually exclusive, and then Sony's live service push. It would just be really cool if by the time we're reaching the point of next-gen consoles, like, regardless of whether or not Microsoft is still bringing some of their games over to PlayStation, or, you know, who knows, maybe PlayStation is going to be bringing more of their games to Switch at that point, PC, of course. It would just be very cool to see a much more interesting console generation that is fueled by excitement. Like, in the, you know, we use the term competition frequently, but and that term needs to be used frequently because it's a very relevant thing that drives the excitement. But it would just be nice if we could get to a point where the general view of the console market of Microsoft and the Xbox console line and PlayStation and the PlayStation console line, and obviously with the Switch too, if we could just see that get back to a better place overall. Because one of the things I'm noticing, you know, people talk about the console wars being dead, and yeah, they pretty much are dead, but it's not just the console war, right, side of it. It's just console enthusiasm is waning. Like the conversation around the console market itself, at least when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, while PlayStation is still much stronger in terms of mind share and interest than Xbox is, I'm beginning to notice like it's waning. It is. And that's not to say that it will die, right? I've talked about that as well, how we don't want to see the console market die. We don't want to see it just like completely fade away. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But I guess the question really comes down to like how much will Microsoft's decision making impact Sony's, and how much will those two things ultimately determine the rollout of the next generation consoles? Because right now, I can tell you this, the remainder of this generation is set. We already know what to expect. You're going to have the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. The Pro is going to be the console that Sony markets, shows games off for the next 3 years or so until the PlayStation 6 is revealed. But the Xbox generation is already winding down. That should be obvious. It has to. Microsoft cannot continue to justify supporting this generation of consoles if literally nobody's buying them. And people are just, sales every quarter are down by 30, 40, 50%. Sony might have to end the gen sooner than they want to if I don't know. Well, I don't think that will happen, but if suddenly out of nowhere it's like, bro, people are not buying PS5s now, Sony might have to get a move on as well. And this is what's going to drive Microsoft to come out sooner. And this is why I just think, when we look at the playing field here, are we going to see both Sony and Microsoft ultimately transform into companies where it's like, we just want you to play our games? Doesn't really matter how. I think with Microsoft, it's like, yeah, probably. Sony, I'm not so sure. But I think what Microsoft does or does not do in the next 2 to 3 years determines that. And Project Latitude, I think, determines that to a heavy degree. Jay Shako coming in. Jay, thank you so much, my friend. He's dropping the first membership gift of the day. Love to see it, Jay. Appreciate the support. Just a reminder, guys, if we hit that 25 goal, I'll drop 5 memberships as well for you guys, and we will feed the beast. So Jay's getting us started. We'll see if we can get there today. We had a big day yesterday, which was great to see. What's going on here? Hold on one sec, guys. And Waylark with another super chat. Waylark says, console wars are non-existent. PlayStation will continue to be the third-party machine for normies. The Switch 2 will do its thing, trying to outsell Switch 1. But see, Waylark, I don't know. I think right now we're seeing a quiet time. A time of, I don't know if you want to call it peace, right? Like if we're going with the whole console war terminology, I think we're seeing a quiet period, and that quiet period exists because all 3 companies have had to basically transition and pivot and essentially like not go back to the drawing board, but huddle up and figure out the next play and determine what the next play is. And I think that's why we're seeing this, because like you're bringing up the Switch 2 and you're saying, the Switch 2, its goal is just going to be to outsell the Switch 1. But I'm like, okay, well, what if, you talk about like outselling the Switch 1. The Switch 1 is an insanely well-selling console, obviously. Like that goes without saying. But it's not going to be an easy feat for the Switch 2 to achieve, even with all those, Nintendo exclusives. But this is where I'm telling you, something that could shake everything up is you mentioned PlayStation being the go-to third-party machine for normies. How different do things look when suddenly the Switch 2 is getting immense third-party support? Most of the games that you thought you could only get either on a PlayStation and Xbox or PC, now they're on Switch 2 as well. How much does that change? How much changes when most of the new third-party games we see announced, oh yeah, this is coming to Switch 2 as well. See, I feel like we're in a position right now where, again, man, Sony, the worst mistake they could make by far, in my opinion. Some people think they're already doing this. I think it's too soon to tell. We need to see how they operate in the next year or two. The biggest mistake Sony could make is underestimating Nintendo and Microsoft, both of them. I'm not saying they should be shaking in their boots, assuming they're going to get wrecked. No, like, obviously, they're in a position of strength. They're in a good position, Sony. They're in a better position than Microsoft in most ways, right? And even in some ways better than Nintendo. But I do believe that Sony has to take seriously, like they have to at least seriously consider the prospect of the Switch 2 might be a bigger competitor to not only, you know, the PS5 and the PS5 Pro for the remainder of this generation, but also the PS6. I don't know. You have to consider that. You have to consider what Call of Duty might do for Game Pass now, and you have to consider the fact that Microsoft seemingly is going to roll out their next console maybe even 2 years before the next PlayStation, potentially. These are things that I'm not saying one thing individual is just going to knock Sony on their ass and Sony's back to the PS3 days all of a sudden, the early PS3 days. No, but these are things that first it starts with the Switch 2. Then Sony maybe notices, okay, PS5 sales are starting to fall. Switch 2 sales are skyrocketing. We can't help but notice that the Switch 2 is getting multi-platform games. That we didn't have to worry about that for the last 10 years or more. We didn't have to worry about Call of Duty being on Switch. We didn't have to worry about, well, I guess GTA 6, and that's a big one. I guess GTA 6 isn't going to be on Switch. But we didn't have to worry about Capcom games or, whatever. Just name the third-party publisher. We didn't have to worry about their games being day one on the Switch. So that basically nullified, the prospect of serious competition, of the Switch being a real threat. They could coexist because, you buy the Switch for the portability and for the Nintendo exclusives. Okay, well, you buy PlayStation for the third-party support and our exclusives, and that's fine. But also, by the way, yet another reason why Sony might want to consider, or at the very least, they're going to think about, should we go back to actual exclusives for the PS6? Well, Nintendo is going to have real exclusives. I mean, true exclusives, and they're going to have third-party support too. So you tell me, Sony. And to Waylark with another super chat. Waylark, I appreciate all the super chats, buddy. You're saying you made me chuckle. Likely 30 FPS Switch 2 third-party games versus 60 FPS PS third-party games. Switch 2 will have better versions of their own games. Equals sales. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the part I didn't really go into very deeply, but the Switch 2, when we talk about the third-party games, obviously it's even if a game like GTA 6, although I don't think GTA 6 is, as far as we know, it's not coming to Switch 2, but maybe one day it will. Even if it did, it's okay, how compromised is that going to be? How compromised are all of these third-party games going to be just so it can run on this because the Switch 2 is not going to be anywhere near as powerful as the PS5, or certainly not the PS5 Pro. The question we need to ask ourselves is, how much is that going to matter to the masses? Because the masses, like you said, they will be impressed with Nintendo's games. Or look at how good these games look running on the Switch 2 that Nintendo made, because it's fully optimized for it. But if a game, if like Resident Evil 9, for example, it's like, yeah, that's coming to the Switch 2. It's like it's running at 30 FPS. It's like 720p upscaled or something. Just like some like really garbage number or whatever that people are like, ill. We're really going to find out how much that actually matters, because yeah, I could be way underestimating. For all I know, people are like, bro, I was interested in like Resident Evil 9 releasing on Switch 2 till I heard it's going to be capped at 30 FPS, like at 900p. I'm good. I'm going to buy that literally anywhere else but the Switch 2. But yeah, but then it's like, but if you do buy it on Switch, you could play it portably. So I'm telling you, man, it's a calm before the storm. It's maybe not the best time to use this analogy. But in all seriousness, if it feels like we can't determine the potential damage that Nintendo or Microsoft could do to PlayStation, because the storm hasn't occurred yet. We can look at what's going to happen, and we can predict, and we can try to assume, and we can give our best guesses. But I guess I'm just trying to say that Sony should be on their toes. And if they're not, there's a chance they're going to regret that. And I think Sony just needs to make sure that, again, they're not like trembling and like cowering in fear, like we're toast. Waylark, you're saying the Switch already outsells PlayStation with console and their exclusive games, and you don't consider them competition even now. Well, but that's, Waylark, the reason for that, because you're right. You're absolutely right. But the reason for that is because, like, people have kind of proven this generation that they buy the Switch, like they buy a second console for a specific reason. I buy the Switch as my secondary console for Nintendo exclusives, and the handheld portability is just kind of the icing on top, right? And so it's the Switch 1 really has never been a threat to the PlayStation, because it's proven that it's just a comp. People will buy the Switch first, but then buy the PlayStation as their main third-party machine, or vice versa. They'll buy the PlayStation as their main third-party machine, and they'll buy the Switch for the exclusives. And, of course, some people also still buy, a lot of people actually still buy PlayStations for the exclusives. But that's why I'm saying, like, I want you to think about this for a moment. Imagine the second half of the PS4 generation and the first half of the PS5 generation, and not every, but 90% of the third-party games that we got from like 2017 or 2016 up till now also released on the Nintendo Switch. How many people would have, like, how many PS5 sales would that have, or PS4 and PS5 sales would that have nullified? I'm using that word a lot now because I read it and I like it. I mean, we don't have an answer to that, right? Like, we don't. All we have is what we have. And what we have is what you're saying, Waylark. What we have is, well, look, bro, like, the Nintendo Switch already is outselling the PlayStation. It did outsell the PS4, and it is selling more copies of their own games. But that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, but this whole time, man, Sony can rest easy, because it's like, yeah, but they don't have third-party support. They have very, very weak third-party support. That's our greatest strength. That's why I'm saying suddenly I think Nintendo becomes a much bigger threat Can you just let Waylark have this one? Waylark, I'm not arguing with him. I think it's interesting conversation, you know? I appreciate that Waylark is engaging so deeply here. And Navinzer says Nintendo only cares about running their games. Well, I don't want to presume to know, and I don't want people to walk away from this conversation as like, walking away with well, MBG said so. No, it's not that at all. It's purely speculative. Your guess is as good as mine, right? Waylark, you're saying, so what's your point? They'll sell a few more, LOL. I mean, I guess ultimately my point here is this, Waylark. Because you're right. I do need to I do need to stop constantly speculating and get to the point that I'm trying to make. My main point here is that I think the problem for me as somebody who's just watching and discussing is that the only real answer I have right now is that Sony nor Nintendo nor Microsoft, these three console manufacturers and these three game publishers, not a single one of them have come out and made it clear. I mean, truly clear. Like, this is our plan, this is our strategy, and this is what we're doing. And maybe that will not happen until... Let me back up. I think it's safe to say the reason that isn't occurring right now is because each one is kind of waiting. Who's going to go first? Well, something both Sony and Microsoft obviously know is Nintendo's going first. Because they have to with the Switch 2. Sony will be paying very close attention. How much third-party support exactly is the Switch 2 going to get? How well are these games going to run? How are they going to look on the Switch 2? They're going to be paying very close attention to these things. They're not going to assume that it's going to tank PlayStation, but they're going to pay attention, as will Microsoft. But then Sony's also going, okay, who's next? Well, now it's Microsoft's turn. So the Switch 2 is out. People are hyped. Nintendo's getting more third-party support than they have since the GameCube days. With a console follow-up that they got the naming convention right. They just called it Switch 2. Okay, who's up next? Microsoft's up next. Microsoft comes out. What's it going to be? Here's our powerful $700 is it going to be a $700 console? We can assume it will be if it's going to be more powerful than the Pro, right? How's that going to go down? Maybe nobody cares. Maybe Microsoft doesn't care. So then who's going up next? Then it's Sony's turn to bat. And I really just get this feeling that we're not getting... The answers are not as clear as they could be because I think these companies are intentionally being very quiet and very vague with their wording and the way they discuss these things because they know that anything they seemingly reveal definitively, right? Anything they say definitively is going to potentially influence the decision-making of, if not their competitor, their would-be competitor. Braddock in the chat's like, Microsoft console is dead. Period. Waylark with another super chat says the head of Nintendo made it clear a few weeks back that they are not interested in gen wars, console wars, only in making good games. See, but that's amazing. That's exactly what he should be saying. But the irony, the potential irony in that, like imagine Nintendo finding out that, yo, you just shook Sony. Do you realize that? Like, you just, with the amount of third-party support you're getting, you know, showing certain games running on the Switch and they look pretty good and they can be docked and played at home too. That's good. You know, you just took a chunk out of Sony there, potentially. Imagine, I keep saying Microsoft. Imagine Nintendo just being like, huh, that's not what we were trying to do. We don't care. You know, like, we're just doing our thing. That would be the greatest irony. Raven X0, member for 2 months. Thank you, buddy. He says, anything can happen, sure, but as long as Sony continues to make great games, not veer off chasing stupid trends and make great hardware, they'll be great. Well, yeah, I want to make something clear here as well, Raven. Like, I think some people, when they hear the way I talk about this, and maybe I have a tendency to make it sound this way, they take it as like I'm dooming Sony. No, I just mean like, dude, Sony, I don't think they're going to go on forever without having some potentially serious competition knocking on their door, even if it's inadvertently. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And Steven Leon coming in, dropping the 20 bomb on you guys. Steven coming in out of nowhere once again. This is what he likes to do. I saw you in the chat earlier, Steven, but now I'm seeing you dropping 20 membership gifts. Steven, thank you so much. I got to give you a soundbite here. Which one? Hold on, let me see. I'm going to play one I haven't played in a long time. I don't know which one it is.
Say hello to democracy!
Well, that wasn't the one I was trying to play. Hold on, what's this one? Boss thanks you, Steven. Because with that, we are up to 21 members. And just like that, Hellbound 1981, 2 legends back-to-back. They're tag teaming it. Hellbound drops another 5 bomb for you guys, and we did it. We crushed the goal. Hellbound always swoops in. He always waits. He's like, when we just need 5 more to feed the beast, that's when I strike. So just like that, we are now up to 26 members on the day. So with that, not only do we feed the beast, but I'm going to drop 5 membership gifts for you guys as well, if YouTube lets me, which they will. So here we go. 5 more from me as a thank you for the support. And I do want to take a moment before we continue our conversation to remind everybody that we did Morning with the Misses today. The second episode. You guys, again, incredibly positive response. So if you were gifted a membership, please go check out that content when you get the chance. Go watch it. Go watch the Members Lounge and look forward to more members content. And I hope you continue to be a member of the channel. So, boss, where are you?
Boss, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
Here we go, bro. It's all you. I don't want to go overboard with them. There you go, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you guys for the support. I also want to ask you guys to please take a moment and hit that like button if you haven't already. It really helps the stream. Lets me know you guys are enjoying it. It's been helping with YouTube's algorithm. So if you're enjoying the conversation and the discussion, hit that like button. And we're at 26. All right, so there you go. 26 members thanks to Steven's 20 bomb and Hellbound taking it home. We'll see if we can, I mean, if you guys want to strive for a second goal, again, if we hit 50, I'll drop another 5 for you, all right? Also had a super chat, a couple super chats that I missed. Josh with a $10 super chat says, games are releasing at a much more consistent rate for Nintendo than they are for Sony. It will be interesting to see if the Switch 2 can cut into Sony's market share like Sega did in the early 90s. That's another thing, too. It would be quite... What is this thing on my back here? What is that? It'll be quite interesting to see if, again, Nintendo kind of having... they will have less powerful hardware compared to both Sony and Microsoft, of course. But the way that they do approach game development, not only combined with that slightly less powerful hardware, the rate at which, as you're mentioning here, Josh, that they can pump out these games. Sony. I think the thing for Sony, what their hope might be, is that they get a bigger pop for their games, bigger bang for their buck. Where if Nintendo's games, and that's kind of like the greatest irony. Again, it's just so ironic to see the difference between Sony and Nintendo when we talk about this, because Sony, they need their games to sell as well as Nintendo's games do, but they kind of don't. It's not to say that Sony's games sell poorly. They do not sell poorly. They sell very well, most of them. It's, they do have their flops on occasion, but generally speaking, they sell very well. But Nintendo's sell exceptionally well, like insanely well. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And with their bigger main franchises, that's what Sony would hope to achieve. And frankly, if Sony continues down the road they're going, where it's like games are getting more expensive, games are getting longer to develop, they're going to need to achieve that level of sales success to be able to justify all of this. You know what I mean? As time goes on. But Josh, it is going to be, I'm right there with you, man. Like, I can't wait to see how this plays out. I feel like maybe I'm talking a little bit too much these days about next gen already, but it's just when we're talking about topics like today, where Project Latitude is being brought up, and what Call of Duty is going to do for GamePass, and truthfully, I feel like it's impossible. I feel like it's impossible to not be talking about the Nintendo and the Switch 2, because I'm honestly surprised. Is anybody else kind of surprised that the Switch 2 wasn't revealed already? I thought that this was going to happen already, but I guess it's going to come a little bit later than we thought. Waylark, you're saying Nintendo always do their own thing. $100 clocks. You're absolutely right, man. Nintendo always does their own thing. They're going to continue to do their own thing. And I'm just, at this point in time, it seems like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, I think they all kind of have to start doing their own thing. And I'm just like sitting here wondering, like, all right, well, if you're all doing your own thing, how frequently, how often can we expect you to cross paths? Not intentionally, but it just happens organically. I feel like there's this kind of idea that no matter how much you try to get away from the competitive aspect, you can't. It will find you. It will happen, right? Navinzer with a $2 super chat says, "Are you smoking mold, LOL? Switch plays 3DS games." I have been smoking mold. How'd you know, Navinzer? This is why I make no sense anymore. Are you smoking mold? And Waylark, once again, Waylark dropping a ton of super chats today, man. Thank you for that. Saying Nintendo pushes out so many games with having gameplay over graphics, and crunch is still very much a thing in Japan. I'll take your word for that. I haven't actually, like, I don't actually know if that's true or not, but I mean, I will say this. One of the things that seems to be hurting Sony's reputation right now is, and I see it all the time. I saw it recently. I was talking to you guys about this in a recent video I saw, is the fact that their games are taking so long to develop. People are getting restless. People are getting impatient. And a lot of people who have bad faith are just starting to kind of express their disdain. Like how it's like, man, Horizon wasn't, Forbidden West wasn't as good. Ragnarok wasn't as good. It's just, it's all just sequels, the same things. Where are the games, Sony? Where are the new games? It's like yesterday, for example, I talked about the fact that in my video, PS5 sales are dropping. And when I went to go check the comments after it was updated for like 24 hours, some of the top comments I saw were people like, see, this is what happens when you don't release games. This is what happens when you don't have exclusives. So on and so forth. And this is a very relevant part of the conversation. And because of that, I do wonder like if Sony has a solution. Uh-oh. The chair's attacking. Can you believe Luna just manhandled that massive chair next to me and just moved it over like that? MBJ, have you played Black Ops 6 yet? I have. We'll talk a little bit about that because we're going to be talking about how Black Ops 6 may or may not impact GamePass. We're going to be talking about that next. What'd you say? If it's not under the bed, I don't know. I'm gonna make sure Luna gets some of her treats too, since we hit the goal. All right. I will say this though before we move on to any other topics. Wait, hold on. We have another super chat from Waylark. Once again, he says, as others in the chat have also said, it's culturally expected in Japan to just work crazy hours and deadlines. Yeah, I mean, we know that some of Sony studios have been like called out, right? Some like I think it was like Naughty Dog, and I think there were others like maybe Insomniac. They were like called out for the crunch culture, and I mean, I've talked about this before, and to me it seems like it's a balance, and that's where it's like, look, is it realistic to have it all? Is it realistic to, for us to assume we can have it all? Is it realistic for the companies? The reason why I'm saying this is because it's like, well, okay, we want to make the biggest and the best games. Okay. So what's that going to require? It's going to require a massive budget. Okay, I guess we can make that happen. It's also going to require a very large amount of time. Okay. Is there any way we can speed it up? Not without crunching. Should we crunch? Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong if people want to pour their passion into things and they want to go the extra mile because they want to deliver the best thing possible. That's, I think anybody who's worked on something passionately, I think understands that sometimes you end up crunching and you're not even trying. Like it's just you're lasered in. You're just like, and sometimes it can be kind of unhealthy, right? It's like maybe you should like pump the brakes a little bit, take a little, mind your mental health, mind your physical well-being. But there is a difference, I think, between people actively choosing to crunch out of passion because they, in a way, they get some kind of there's something in there that they want, where it's like, if I'm willing to do what somebody else isn't, then I might get results that somebody else won't. And that's what drives that mentality. I think there's a difference between that coming from the creative themselves and the worker themselves and the artist themselves versus a company being like, no, you will work these hours because we will hit this deadline, period. And we don't care what the cost associated is. We don't care if you're mentally unwell. You know what I mean? That's where things I think get bad. Like that's toxic, right? And if that's like the type of culture where it's like that is the expectation, and if you don't do that, then you just can't hang. I mean, it's a tough thing because people talk about championship teams, right? Like there's a fine line between you're going too far and you're not going far enough, right? To like if you want to be part of the best, you're not going far enough. And I think that that's the challenge, right? If it always reminds me of sports teams where, it is totally nonsense, I think, to expect to play with championship caliber players and at the highest possible level, but just be like, well, you guys are going to, I can't keep up, I need everybody to slow down. It's like, well, I don't know. Like you're saying we should all slow down for you, even though we're the champions, even though we've proven that we're the best, even though we have the results to back up our methods. That's where I kind of also understand, like, you can't. It's a tough thing, I don't know. I don't know that it's always the wisest thing to potentially, to if you're passionate to a degree where it potentially harms your health and your life. Not so sure about that. But then again, if it's passion, it's passion. Only the individual could determine that. But what I do firmly believe in is that if you are entering if you're becoming part of a team, and you're working together, and that team has a method, and that team has a way of doing things, and that has worked, and it gets the results. I don't know that I necessarily believe in the one person or the two people, the outliers that can't really keep up. I don't know that they should be the ones necessarily to determine whether or not that changes. I think that that's where it's like, well, then you go make your own team and you work at your own pace, and you get the results that you get. Okay. I don't know. That's kind of how that's where I lean with that. But I guess that's a whole different conversation. Shit, I almost just knocked my coffee over. That would have been bad. That would have been bad. Oh, God. I just had a moment of panic because I thought I knocked my coffee over all over my desk. Whew. That was close. Ahoy, Tyler. Member for 13 months. Thank you for that support, buddy. Hold on, I lost you here. Oh, shit. Hold on. The whole thing crashed. Ahoy, Tyler. Give me a second. Now I'm so tired of YouTube, man. I really am. They just it just keeps crashing. And I know it's not just me. I see people coming in constantly, basically being like, is anybody else having these issues with YouTube? And it's like, sure am. I have no idea what's going on the back end anymore. All right, did I fix it? I think I fixed it. Ahoy, Tyler. Sorry about that, buddy. Saying Nintendo has always thrived as they can make games very quickly due to lower graphics. They might hit longer dev times now that they are closer to PS4. And there's also the expectation, right? We talk about the hardware, and you're saying like them being closer to the PS4 or the PS4 Pro. That certainly could have an impact on the development timeline. But I also think it's the general expectation of the audience, where it's like, what is the audience expecting from us? Are they expecting a big leap, a massive leap? I mean, truly something that's going to take more time, that's going to cost more? Or if we don't deliver that, are we still going to sell just as many copies? Are we still just going to sell as many units? I guess we'll find out. Nintendo will have to be the one to determine that. But obviously, with a next-gen console, there is an expectation, for better graphics, better performance. But we went on a couple of different side quests there, I would say, during the course of this topic about Project Latitude. But let's circle back to Project Latitude, and let me give my kind of closing thoughts on this topic before we move on to the next one. So essentially, what we were looking at is a rumor claiming that Microsoft is slowing down with Project Latitude, and the games are not going to be coming over to PlayStation or Nintendo as quickly, and it's going to be slower. So there actually was, and this is how I know sometimes I can just get totally off track, there was one other really important aspect to this conversation that I wanted to talk about with you guys, and it has to do with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So when we look at this rumor, the rumor claims that the reason why Microsoft is slowing down and pumping the brakes is because of the way, not even just the way in which Indiana Jones was revealed to be coming to PS5, but the reaction of the fans, the reaction of the internet. And this to me is actually believable. This is believable. I'm going to tell you why. Waylark drops another super chat saying, so IGN gave COD a 9. Doesn't that mean it's woke? Is that what that means? A 9. Is that for the entirety of Black Ops 6, or like are they reviewing each, like are they reviewing the multiplayer individually and zombies, or is that for the whole package? I mean, dude, that's a good score, obviously, and I'll talk about my thoughts on what I played of Call of Duty so far, but I don't know, man. Like, is IGN... I feel like they've lost so much credibility when it comes to their reviews. In fact, frequently when I'm scrolling Twitter, I see people putting compilations of their reviews for not just games, but like shows and movies, and people just being like, see how much of a joke it is. And I'm like, yeah, the longer I pay attention to review scores, the more I realize they just, like, it's kind of nonsense, you know? Why would you just like, Waylark, please don't start this again? I mean, like I said, I'll give you my thoughts on what I played of Call of Duty so far. Would I say it's woke? No. Not based off of what I played. Oh, that's interesting. You're saying you believe it's just a campaign. Yeah, maybe I'll go check that out. Because, like I said, we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But before I move on to that topic, I want to talk about the idea that when Microsoft announced Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming to PS5, the way the internet reacted to that announcement, that made Microsoft go, whoa, okay, we got to slow our roll. I actually think this is believable. And I could not believe the way in which Microsoft announced this. Now, it's worth noting Disney, their partnership with Microsoft with this game, Disney could have told them to do it this way. But for those who don't remember or recall, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was saved as for the PS5, that is, as the one more thing moment for Gamescom this year, dude. So they show this new trailer, they get Xbox players hyped, they get Xbox fans excited, and it shows the release date of December. Again, Xbox fans are hyped. They're like, yes, finally, our exclusive game is coming. Or, our console exclusive game is coming this December. We got a good lineup. And then Jeff Keighley's like, wait, we got one more thing to reveal. And it was literally just an in-your-face announcement that Indiana Jones is coming to PS5 next spring. In other words, like anywhere between 4 and 6 months later. And the conversation immediately shifted from hype for our Xbox console exclusive to holy shit, this game's going to PS5. And I saw the way people were reacting to it, and I really do wonder if this could have had an impact. Waylark, you're saying no way Microsoft cares what neckbeards on X think, LOL. Well, I mean, I do agree. Like, I don't think the board of Microsoft gives a shit, honestly, what the reaction was. But there is no doubt that a portion of the Xbox division, their job is to kind of monitor this, right? Like, they have to see, because these companies can't. I know a lot of times people believe that these companies just literally do whatever they want when they want. And to be fair, there's a lot of times where it seems like they do. But there's also those moments that have occurred time and time again where a company just does what it wants and it was the worst decision they ever made. They just stepped on a not even a landmine, but it's just like there's a giant gaping hole in the ground right there. Make sure you don't walk into it. And they just walk right into it. It's like, okay, like how did you not see that? Like literally everybody else sees it but you. That has happened. And that's why, to a degree, with things like this, like we're talking about something that could severely damage the brand in a way that could be comparable to the Xbox One reveal, as we saw in February of this year. So because of that, I think that there is a level of we need to see the reaction. Like we need to see like how big does the fire get? Is it containable? Is it not that bad? How much backlash do we get? And I honestly, maybe it is a bit conspiratorial to think this, but I do really wonder if that was why they chose to reveal it that way, is they just wanted to see, like, what if we do start making PS5 announcements in a big way? Because that's the thing that I think people kind of maybe don't think about that much, is that if Microsoft does want to bring these games to PS5, they kind of have to make a big deal about it. Or they don't have to, but they want to. Like, they really want people to know, like, guys, we're coming to PS5. Make sure you pre-order. Because that's the whole point. They're not trying to do it low key. They're not trying to like, we'll just stealth drop this game over here. They're not trying to do it that way. Because that's the opposite of what, they're trying to get as much money as they can. They're trying to get as many sales as they can. And so I do wonder if Indiana Jones and the Great Circle being announced for PS5, the way in which it was, is like a one more thing moment. I wonder if that was done intentionally to just gauge, like, how will people react to this? Will it be as bad as we think? And was the reaction negative enough that they decided, you know what, we got to rethink how we're going to make these announcements? Because keep in mind, prior to Indiana Jones being announced, there were a bunch of rumors that like games like Forza Horizon and I don't know, people keep mentioning like Starfield, like other games were expected to be announced this year. And you do got to wonder if maybe Microsoft got cold feet and they're like, But what kind of flies in the face of that is what we covered earlier, where Satya Nadella is straight up flexing, the fact to the shareholders that, yeah, we brought Sea of Thieves, we brought fan favorite games to PlayStation and Switch, and we're going to continue to do so. So it's like, here's what I think. This is where I'll wrap this topic up and we'll move on to the next topic. Here's what I think. I think that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, has made it crystal clear to Microsoft what he wants. I think because he runs the ship at the end of the day, right? I think he made it clear, I want these games to go to PlayStation and Switch. I want them to be sold over there, and I want to maximize profitability as a third-party publisher. Satya Nadella is also the same person that says he has zero love for exclusives. If it were up to him, it wouldn't exist. But I think, because, it's not even I think, this is how it works. At the same time, he says, this is the goal. Okay. This is what I would want, but you're in charge of the gaming division. So I'm not going to tell you how to run it, but we have to hit these numbers. So I'm not going to tell you how to hit these numbers. I'm not going to force you to do it in any specific way, but we need to hit these numbers. You know what we expect. Make it happen. And I think because of that, this is why we've seen basically Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty put in these weird, awkward positions where they're like, I mean, honestly, like half the time these days, Phil seems like he's not even sure himself. And I think it's because, yeah, like Phil knows. He looks He looks at the reports and he knows we got to hit these numbers, man. How are we going to hit these numbers? I gotta leverage PlayStation sales. Like I gotta leverage that audience, right? But how do you do that without killing your own? So I feel like in a way, the Xbox leadership is put in a bit of they're in between a rock and a hard place, and that's where I'm going to segue into the next conversation about Call of Duty, because I think Call of Duty ultimately may help give them some clarity on how they should proceed. Waylark once again says, come on, MBG, if they're that soft from a little pushback on X, wouldn't they change their whole plans on what they're doing to the console division? Dude, sometimes I think they do. I'm not even kidding. Like, look back at February of this year, man. Like, Microsoft had to do an emergency podcast, bro, because of the internet's reaction. So, yes, I think they are. I think Microsoft is that sensitive to, and I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's like, I think that's the reality where, from a more conservative standpoint, sure, they need to pay attention to their PR and their optics. But when we look back to February of this year, literally they announced an emergency Xbox podcast to calm people down. I mean, what does that tell you? To me, that tells me like, oh, dude, they were basically looking at every tweet coming out and every report being written up and like, oh boy, So I think that it's safe to say when they announced Indiana Jones for PS5, they were also reading the headlines. Yes, they were paying attention to Twitter. I think they were paying very close attention to the gaming media. I think that they were. And I'm not here to say whether that's the ideal thing to do, but I don't know, man. I do think it would be unwise at this point in time for Microsoft to pull back in any way on what they've already started to establish. Because, the fans, I think like the hardcore fans would be happy. Like, yes, don't give PlayStation our games because it's like we need Xbox to have its own identity and all that stuff. I think they would feel good about that. But I just feel like if you've come this far, I know that there are like bigger games that would be like nuclear bomb drops, like if Halo came to PlayStation or whatever. But if you've come this far, like, and it's making you money, it's working. Like, why would you stop? It doesn't make any sense to stop. But slowing down, maybe. Maybe they're slowing down because they want to see what Sony does. I don't know. Is Sony going to go day and date with PC? Is Sony going to start releasing more games on Switch? Maybe Sony's doing stuff too. I mean, Phil said it himself. He says you're going to see other gaming companies start to do this too, other platform holders. So it almost does seem like Microsoft is kind of hoping a little bit that they start to see more of this from Sony themselves in a way to be able to help kind of justify their own presenting of, hey, here's another game coming to PlayStation, and you can't say anything because, look, Sony just announced one of their games going to Switch, something along those lines. Okay, you're saying, MBG, a big issue with this topic is gamers talking about it, don't understand business, and their perspective is filtered through a partisan lens of loving PS and can't clearly analyze reality. Well, I think that applies across the board, right? People who are too deeply entrenched in, their love of a specific brand or product or whatever, and they kind of, like you're saying, they can't really analyze it from the more business-oriented perspective that is needed, I think, to fully understand like why certain decisions are made. But we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, I play on PlayStation. You guys know that. Talked about that yesterday. Talk about it every day. So for me, Project Latitude is something that I will be paying attention to with great interest because I can't deny that there are absolutely Xbox games that are coming down the pipeline at some point that I want to play. And it's going to matter to me. It's going to impact me. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft is listening in right now on my stream and they're like, oh, did you hear that? We shouldn't go. I'm just kidding. I make the decisions for Microsoft. They base their decisions off of me. MVG Insomniac revealed the new pro mode for Spider-Man 2, and it's mind-blowing. Oh, man. I'll have to go check this out. Maybe that'll be something we can talk about on Sunday stream. But yeah, this is something I will be paying close attention to because I just would like to know. That's all. You know, in the same way that PC players want to know from Sony, like, how long will we have to wait? That's basically what I want to, like, I want to know from Microsoft, like, you know, is State of Decay 3 going to come to PlayStation 5? Because that'd be great. If not, that's cool. I respect it, you know, but I just kind of want to know. But yeah, you know, we'll continue to get answers. I suspect, I'll say this too. I'm looking forward to the Game Awards because I have a feeling Microsoft might have more to say at the Game Awards. If not the Game Awards, certainly once we get into 2025, which is crazy to think, dude. Like, we're about to roll into November. It's hard to believe we're this close to 2025 already. Time flies. But certainly when we get to 2025, we're going to be hearing a lot more, I think, from all these companies about, you know, all the things. All right, guys. So we're going to move on to the next topic of discussion. And before we do, I would really appreciate it if you take a second and hit that like button. We're currently sitting at 115 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up. I'd very much appreciate it. Nick, you're saying people are getting kicked from the Call of Duty campaign because servers are going down. GamePass PC COD is crashing left and right too. It's a disaster. Oh, shit. That's actually really annoying to hear because, I mean, I haven't had any issues so far, but then again, like, I was playing a little bit earlier before the global rollout. So, man, that's disheartening. But I guess to be expected, right? Like, I don't know. Let me go see. Go check what's going on. Jason Schreier says Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard faces its first big test today. The release of a new Call of Duty on Game Pass, which has plateaued. Microsoft's $69 billion bet is that Call of Duty will help it return to growth. Let me see what else I can find here. Black Ops 6 launch highlights. I see that IGN, an excellent... Yeah, IGN gave Call of Duty Black Ops 6 campaign review 9 out of 10. The best Call of Duty campaign in many, many years. Black Ops 6 is a fantastic return to form for the series, allowing the designers at Raven to delve deep into their bag of tricks and keep you guessing at every turn. I will say really quick, I did start playing the campaign for Black Ops 6 and way different than I was expecting. I was expecting the campaign to just be super simple, on rails, you know, like we're just moving from sector to sector in a shooting gallery and from mission to mission and then that's it. And I would have been fine with that, but actually, like, there are levels that are super, like, basically there's certain areas of the game that are practically like open world, but there's also like covert missions and stuff that you got to do where you got to do some like very different types of stuff that I don't recall ever doing in a Call of Duty campaign before. So it's so far I'm enjoying it, but I think I'm too early in it to really. I really want to see where the story goes ultimately. That's what I'm interested in. Instead, you got MJ camera missions. Damn, bro. You're seeing posts on Twitter with the game crashing and disconnecting. Let me see here if I can find anything like that. I mean, I'm seeing. Okay. I'm seeing some weird stuff popping up. See people posting best settings. Maybe check the Call of Duty Reddit. Let's see. Please burn Call of Duty HQ in a fire. Okay. I'm getting like spoilers and stuff, so I'm gonna dip right out of there. Damn it. Waylark with the super chat says, so it's like every COD launch, LOL. Yeah, I guess so. In some way. Amaris RM. I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, buddy. I'm sorry if I butchered it. You're saying I'm on PC Game Pass and don't have any problems. I mean, from what I've played so far, I've been solid, right? I hope there aren't issues. Like, I do want to play it tonight. Like, I want to play zombies for the first time tonight. I don't want any problems, obviously. Yeah, Call of Duty HQ. God, I don't know why they do it that way, man. I genuinely don't know why. What is the purpose of doing COD HQ? It just seems like it makes their download files like unnecessarily huge and just kind of, I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of making people frustrated. There has to be a reason they're sticking with that, right? There has to be some reason. I don't know. But yeah, Call of Duty launching into Game Pass. What do we think? We talked a little bit about this at the end of yesterday's stream, but by that point in time, we were so far into the stream, it wasn't really talked about in any significant manner. There are analysts that have put out their predictions. Some analysts are predicting it can bring in anywhere between 4 and 6 million new subscribers. There are other analysts saying, well, they're being more conservative. They're saying maybe it'll bring in about 2.5, maybe about like a 10% increase. There are others saying that it will bring in quite a few subscribers, but potentially at the expense of full price sales. So you might see headlines like Call of Duty sales down this year, so on and so forth. And I don't know, I'm kind of the mindset that my opinion on Call of Duty going into Game Pass day one is pretty simple. Call of Duty has to be the thing that it shows us, it creates a spark for Game Pass that shows the executives at Microsoft that we made the right choice and this is what we're going to commit to, and we will be able to achieve our long-term goal of being able to hit X amount of Game Pass subscribers. If it can't do that, then honestly, I think that's kind of it for Game Pass, where I don't think Game Pass is going to like shut down or go away, but it will become deprioritized. The problem here, though, is that I don't know that it's a problem, but I think Microsoft may have already committed to this with Game Pass because, I mean, let's say Black Ops 6 on Game Pass does not produce the results that they thought. And it's just like, wow, okay, that was really underwhelming, not what we expected. Do you put next year's Call of Duty into Game Pass? Well, I guess you kind of could, right? You kind of could, because if Game Pass, if Call of Duty and Game Pass doesn't bring over the subscribers they want, then that just means that people are buying the game. And if people are buying the game, then, you're not, you own the game. You're not losing anything. So I think Microsoft has already basically committed to, they're going to release Call of Duty yearly into Game Pass, regardless of the results. But what I do think is that if Call of Duty doesn't produce these substantial results that I would assume, I don't know why my eye's itching so much. I don't know if it's allergies. If it doesn't produce the like substantial results that they would hope to achieve, it might lead to a deprioritization to some degree. But let's look at the other side. Let's say it does produce these substantial results and it just, it skyrockets Game Pass. If that happens, then, well, I think Microsoft has a real chance of achieving their ultimate goal, which is, well, think about it. You have to ask yourself, all this conversation about Game Pass being unsustainable, Game Pass not working as a model, Game Pass just, it's not going to succeed. All these conversations after all these years, you have to ask yourself, well, if it was that obvious from the start that it wasn't going to work, then why would they even do it in the first place? It's because it's about the long term. It won't work for the longest period of time. It just can't, because it's just going to bleed too much money. It requires too much investment. But there's a certain, once you get over that hill, right? Once you get over that hill, if you can, then it's just, you're done. Like from that point forward, it's just you. I mean, we've seen this, right? We've seen this with other subscription services where when you reach a certain amount of subscribers, and I'm talking about sustainable, consistent subscribers, where every quarter we're sitting at anywhere between 100 and 150 million subs. And sometimes it's growing, sometimes it's going down a little bit, but then it's growing a little bit. But it's not like dropping. It's been proven that this model can rake in so much money. I mean, just buku bucks, right? However, the biggest problem with the subscription service, because, that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, that sounds great. Make a sub service, get a lot of subscribers, rake in the money. How do you get the subscribers? There's only one way you get the subscribers. Content. Not just a little bit, not just a moderate amount. You need a lot of content, and that content has to be good. If you can't do that consistently, and when I say consistently, I mean over and over and over and over again, you can have some losses, you can have some bad pieces of content, but there's got to be a lot of really good, high quality content on a very consistent basis. That's expensive. That's an expensive endeavor. And that's what makes it so risky. And that's why, like, nobody else in gaming outside of Microsoft is really committing to the sub service the way that Microsoft is, because Microsoft, they know they can afford to eat the losses for as long as they need to. And this is what it has all been leading to. Why did we eat the losses? Why did we put all this money into Game Pass and getting games day one in the Game Pass and buying all these studios and buying Activision Blizzard? It's all comes down to this. This is the moment. When we get a game, it's not Starfield, right? It's not Halo Infinite. It's not Hellblade. It's Call of fucking Duty. Day one into your sub service. Call of Duty. A full package game here. Full package Call of Duty. Not even just the multiplayer, not just the zombies, not just the campaign, the whole thing. Day one. This is what it's all been leading up to. And that's why it's going to be fun to see what the results end up being, because I can tell you this. Now that Call of Duty is out, I guess we'll give it a quarter. Give it like 3 months. We're going to find out. Did it do it or not? Did Call of Duty do it or not? If it did it, you're going to hear, I mean, it might not take 3 months. It could happen much sooner. If it did what it was supposed to do, if Microsoft finally achieved what they were looking to achieve with Game Pass, they will announce it. Oh, they will absolutely announce it. They will be very excited to tell you, me, their shareholders, and everybody else. They will shout it from the rooftops. Here's how many subs we got from Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And that has the potential to be the snowball where suddenly the investors are like, "Oh, holy shit. Okay." And then suddenly more and more people start to believe in the Game Pass model. But it's a tough thing because if Call of Duty is the thing that, when we think about the long term, if Call of Duty ends up being the thing that allows Game Pass to finally succeed and reach a level that Microsoft has always been striving for, there's nothing Sony can do about that. Because Sony knows, like, well, yeah, no, we could never afford to buy Activision and have own Call of Duty, let alone put it into PlayStation Plus. No chance. We just couldn't invest on that scale. Even if we believed in the 20-year model that can be the overall success of PlayStation Plus, it's just not possible for them. So Microsoft would have won in a way that only they could make work and make happen. And it started with the creation of Game Pass, and it ends with the release eventually of a full-blown new Call of Duty game that they own into Game Pass. And they made it happen. And then again, this is looking at the glass half full. This actually works for them. If that occurs, there's also the idea that Call of Duty could make it happen. Call of Duty could undo it. So if Game Pass gets where it needs to be and shows real, true potential, like, okay, we can hit the 50 million mark now and we can go beyond that. Let's keep it going. Let's push. Every year now, we're going to have an even more aggressive marketing campaign around Call of Duty day one on Game Pass. And we're going to try to get Game Pass in even more places and make it even more accessible. Great. This is how you get from 50 million or from 40 million to 50 million, from 50 million to 60, and from 60 to 70, so on and so forth. And then you throw in, in the future games like Elder Scrolls 6 and, everything else in between. Sure, this is all great. But if the day ever does come where Call of Duty falters, and I've talked about this many times, maybe my analysis on this is wrong, but based off of what I'm seeing from other analysts in the industry, again, we just read yesterday and right now what analysts are predicting Call of Duty will do for Game Pass. There seems to be a very significant notion here that that Call of Duty is the make or break point. But what's interesting to think about Microsoft's investment into Activision Blizzard and acquiring them and their investment into Call of Duty is that everything Microsoft is attempting to do could be undone by Call of Duty if they screw it up. And again, I do not think Call of Duty is going to fall anytime soon. But what does Call of Duty look like 3 years from now? What does Call of Duty look like 6 years from now? What happens when they realize they can't just kind of keep making the same Modern Warfare game over and over again and the same Black Ops game over and over again and recycling the same stuff over and over again to where people start to, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but what happens when they have to actually change it up and innovate again? People look at Modern Warfare 2019 as that was the year that truly changed everything for Call of Duty, where things were starting to go downhill after like the whole advanced movement era with like Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare and so on and so forth. And then they went back to World War II and people were like, bro, really? And, they changed it up. They're like, all right, what if we do a new engine, or if not a new engine, like complete overhaul of the engine, and we just change the feel of Call of Duty? And it worked. It worked really, really well. But now we're like 4 years deep into that, 5 years deep into that cycle. And, it's another Black Ops game. Next year is going to be another Black Ops game, apparently, a follow-up to Black Ops 2. Maybe that'll be really good. I know people love Black Ops 2, but then after that, it's going to be Modern Warfare 4. How's Modern Warfare 4 going to be? Then what's after that? I'm just saying, like, it's interesting to think that Microsoft, they really did put everything into ABK. And most of that, I mean, sure, we talk about King and the mobile sector, but everything really did go into Call of Duty. And I like Call of Duty. I've always liked Call of Duty. There are many years with Call of Duty where I'm like, I'm not really into this, but you know, I've been playing Call of Duty for many years, and so I don't want to see it go downhill, obviously, but it will be very interesting to see how Microsoft handles the management of Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, and Treyarch, because I think the way it is right now is, you know what, guys? You know what you're doing. You know more than we do. You guys make the magic, right? You make it work. So you keep doing that. But what happens when the day comes where suddenly there is a major development problem with the next Black Ops game with Treyarch, or the next Modern Warfare game from Infinity Ward, and it's a train wreck? And they have to decide, like, do we try to push through and release this train wreck, or do we, like, what do we do? Do we cancel it? Do we delay it? What happens? We've never seen that. The closest thing we've gotten to seeing that with Call of Duty is like something like Call of Duty Ghosts or Infinite Warfare. And Activision found a solution. For Ghosts, it was, okay, we're just going to push through and take your feedback, and we'll try to make sure not to do this again next year. Right? For Infinite Warfare was going to be the biggest flop in Call of Duty history. But then they were like, okay, we got it. What if we remaster Modern Warfare 1, like Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, make an $80 version. So if you hate Infinite Warfare, we know we'll get you with the Modern Warfare remaster, and you'll still have to pay full price, even more than full price. Genius. Okay, boom. You saved Call of Duty that year. But I don't know, man. It's interesting to think that these are problems that are likely going to occur in the future. And who knows? Maybe Microsoft will knock it out of the park and they'll be like, we know exactly what to do. Who knows? But I don't know. It's interesting to kind of think about the current situation in the landscape with Game Pass and just how everything is kind of played out up until this point with the subservice, and just how everything is culminated into this one launch. And I think there's so much riding on it. And there's one last thing I want to mention too when talking about this. There's also the fact that if what I just talked about, if the day does come where Call of Duty falls, I mean, it really falls, and it's like, oh, this is disaster. You know, it really does hurt Microsoft. It doesn't just hurt Game Pass. It hurts their entire gaming division, because the sales will struggle too. But as of right now, that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. Call of Duty's a fucking monster. Call of Duty, as of right now, yeah, exactly. Black Ops 4 had no campaign, and it still did extremely well, dude. Like, the Call of Duty fan base is like one of the most loyal in gaming, and they will seemingly stick through it, through thick and through thin. But what we know is that the Call of Duty fan base that has been there for the last 20 years, that was under Activision's leadership. And so it is possible in the future at some point. I don't know, man. Like, Microsoft, it depends on what Microsoft wants to do. Like, if Microsoft ever wants to step in and say, no, we're going to do this. Like, if Microsoft decides they want to get more hands-on with Call of Duty, that could spell doom for that year's Call of Duty. But as of right now, I think Microsoft is smart enough to know they know what they're doing. They know better than we do. We're not going to interfere. You don't need too many cooks in the kitchen. Let them cook. Let them do it. And if they need our help, you know, if they need something, we'll be here. Even Sony bent the knee to Call of Duty. Yeah. I mean, yeah. What do you think Microsoft does if it just kind of does all right on their Game Pass subs? That would be interesting since a complete failure or success would be easy to predict what will happen. I think if it just does okay, I think Microsoft is satisfied with that. Because I think at that point it becomes much more important for Microsoft to pay attention to, okay, how many sales did we get of Black Ops 6? How much money did we make overall? I think that becomes more important if it only does okay on Game Pass, because at the end of the day, regardless of how Call of Duty does on Game Pass, Microsoft is going to need to see big numbers. They need those big numbers so they can take those big numbers. Phil Spencer can take those big numbers, show them to Satya Nadella, show them to Amy Hood, show them to the shareholders, and everybody can be like, you know what? This was a great idea. Us buying Activision Blizzard, look at this money. We're going to make back our money in no time. This is awesome. So it really, I think, and as of right now, dude, I'll be honest, like I haven't seen this much excitement for a Call of Duty game in quite some time. So I think Microsoft won it this year, man. I think that they're going to walk away with a huge success, even if Call of Duty only does a modest amount for Game Pass. But that's what's going to make watching this unfold in the future so interesting, because I've been there when Call of Duty got hairy, man. When things got hairy and, you could kind of tell Activision was starting to feel the pressure where it's like, oh shit, like our bread and butter might not deliver the way we thought this year. That's going to be bad news for the business. I guess the hope is that I guess the hope is that Sony, that they keep selling PS5s and Call of Duty just keeps selling on them. I mean, yeah, that kind of is the hope, right? But I guess the hope is that the pipeline of Call of Duty games that are currently being planned and in development they're gonna hit, right? Oh yeah, Vanguard, that's another one. Vanguard seemed to have not. I don't know. It's so funny because even the worst selling Call of Duty still like stomps most other games. My eye is itching me like crazy, dude. I don't know what's going on. Like, it's painfully itchy. I'm allergic to this conversation, guys. Oh, it's like one of those itches that no matter how much you itch it, it doesn't go away. PS5 will still prop up Call of Duty because it's not Game Pass. Yeah. I mean, dude, both Sony and Microsoft especially Microsoft, they're going to make a lot of money from Black Ops 6 this year. I'm sure Sony is, certainly a little bit frustrated to see that Call of Duty is being marketed, with Game Pass. Because the way Sony views it is, if it wasn't for Microsoft buying it, Sony would be marketing the shit out of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 right now. They would be marketing the shit out of it for the PS5 Pro, exclusive skins and whatever, early access to the campaign, you name it. They'd be marketing it. So I'm sure Sony is frustrated by that because it's like, they would really want to have that because it's proven that it's helped them. But it's also going to be very interesting to get the sales data for Call of Duty this year, because let's see, Sony, how much did that marketing truly help you? Because what if it turns out that you didn't have the marketing for Call of Duty this year? Microsoft did for Game Pass, but you still sold just as many copies. Like, how funny would that be? It's like, Sony, you were just blowing your money for no reason, bro. Thinking like you need to do this to get this many sales. But I'm looking forward to getting the data and finding out. But yeah, I wanted to have this conversation with you guys today because it's, big release, Call of Duty, Game Pass. At Black Ops 6, PSVR 2, yeah, they would have done some shit like that. That actually would have been sound pretty cool, actually, if they did that. But Sony would have done the whole thing. But interesting times, nonetheless, man. Interesting times. We went from talking about the announcement that Microsoft is in talks to acquire Activision Blizzard to here we are, years later. Black Ops 6 drops on Game Pass. Sony doesn't have the marketing. How is it selling on PS5? Probably making a killing. And yeah. But guys, I don't know, man. I think that might wrap up our conversation ultimately. Where are we at? Let me see. Okay, saying Microsoft will be satisfied with Black Ops 6 on Game Pass if it inches for the momentum for the service because Microsoft knows it has another Call of Duty coming next year. They're okay if it takes years for the snowball effect to work. You might be right about that, okay, right? Like maybe there's not nearly as much pressure on it right now as I suspect. Maybe like you're saying, they're just looking for a glimmer of hope. It doesn't have to be an explosion. It's just got to be a little like, oh, we're seeing some growth. Let's keep it going. That might be enough. Microsoft is making bank either way. They get 70 or 80% of all sales and microtransactions. Yeah, that's true too. I didn't even consider that. Call of Duty's, full-blown live service game now. And yeah, I didn't even think about that. I think that's how Activision made the bulk of their money too. Not even just on the full sales. But guys, we're going to be wrapping this up in just a couple of minutes. We're a little over the 2 hour and 15-minute mark. So we'll do like a last call here, okay, as I just chat with you guys for a couple of minutes. If you want to drop any more membership gifts, feel free to do so. If you want to try to hit a second goal before we wrap this up, feel free to do so. If you have any more super chats you want to drop or anything like that, now is the time to do it because we're going to wrap up this Friday stream. And I do want to just remind everybody we did Morning with the Misses earlier today, an hour and a half. Great time. So if you are a member, go check that out when this is done. Saying Call of Duty makes like 79% off of microtransactions. Info from the ABK trial. That's nuts. Wow. I didn't know it was that high. 79%. That's no joke. Sony is also getting a larger cut of the profits now, so they're making bank for doing nothing. Yeah, I saw people talking about that. What's up with that? Like, why are they getting a higher cut? Is there a specific... Was that part of the deal that they struck with Microsoft? Okay, you're saying their approach seems to be working in some corners. I didn't expect a person I know who hasn't gamed in years to sign up for Game Pass for Black Ops 6 on a Fire Stick. I mean, I have anecdotal evidence as well, okay? I have a friend who hasn't played Call of Duty in years. Played the beta, enjoyed it, and decided that they're going to play it through Game Pass as well. They do have the console, but I thought that was interesting too. Sony's getting 30% of the profits now versus 20%. You think it's because of the deal? That's interesting. Yeah, I could see actually, yeah, that's probably what happened, right? Sony was like, look, Microsoft will do anything if we submit, and sign the deal. So let's just see if we can. Like, I mean, I get it. I could see Microsoft just being like, whatever, Sony. Like, we'll give you the extra 10%. We just want to get this done. I could totally see that. Because it's not like it'll be forever, right? It will be for 10 years. Go check on something here. All right. Jim took care of it for you. An extra 10% and no marketing money spent. Good place for Sony to be in. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Waylark, you're saying, doesn't Steam get 30% on games? Is that not normal? You know what I think it might be? You know what? Let me look into this because, yeah, you're right. I think that is the norm. Let me just check. See if I can find anything. I'm not finding anything. Oh, you know what I think it is? Okay. Yeah, I think I recall hearing about this. I think what happened is basically Bobby Kotick had like aggressive negotiations with both Sony and Microsoft and basically strong armed both of them into taking a lesser cut. I think it was even more so for Microsoft since they had even less consoles sold, but they even had Sony take a lesser cut. And so maybe at this point, the contract negotiated with Sony and Microsoft is just a regular standard, industry standard 30%. Waylark is saying Apple only does 20 to 80%, I think. It's like a 20-80 split. Well, yeah, so it that's my guess here is it's not about necessarily Sony strong arming Microsoft or getting more from that. I think it's just them coming to an agreement that because if you think about it, like Microsoft wouldn't be able to do that without looking super shitty at a time when they need to look the best they possibly can. Sony's probably like, we want 30% because that's the standard. And Microsoft can't really turn and be like, no, because it's going to make them look bad, when in reality at that time, again, they're just absolutely desperate. But that's interesting to think, man. Bobby Kotick was pushing Sony and Microsoft around being like, you will take this offer. It's the best deal you're going to get. If it sells great on PlayStation, that's money for Microsoft. It's business. Yep. I mean, they're both going to win here at the end of the day. That's kind of the irony. We started this conversation talking about Project Latitude and competition and all this, but the reality is they're both going to win in their own way. So, but guys, I think that's going to do it for today's stream. Pretty much an Xbox, mostly Xbox. Well, we talked about next gen. Project Latitude has to do with PlayStation, but yeah, mostly Xbox focused stream. So, I hope you did enjoy it. I enjoyed having this conversation with you guys. It'll be interesting to see how, how the rest of the year plays out with all of this stuff. But yeah, so before I head out, I do want to extend a big thank you to everybody who showed direct support. We did hit, 26 members today. So to everybody who dropped membership gifts, thank you so much for that support. And to anybody who received the membership gift, again, go check out the members' content. I also want to give a big thank you to everybody who dropped super chats. Waylark, you dropped a ton of super chats today, so I do appreciate that, buddy. And I appreciate anybody who is fan funding the channel and supporting the channel and making it possible for me to do this. So yeah. Also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for all the streams. He does a great job. If you guys see him in the comments, show him some love. Give him some thanks. I know he appreciates it. And yeah, Devil Shooter, thank you for what you do, man. And that does it. So that concludes this Friday stream. I will let you know I did put out a video earlier. So basically, we have all 3 lanes of content filled out today. Video, regular stream, and some members content. So please check it out if you're interested. And that does it. Last thing I'll ask you to do is to just hit that like button on your way out. And yeah, so guys, I'm going to probably just chill tomorrow, take a day off, and we'll be back here on Sunday to have some more conversation about, I would assume, a new batch of topics. But that does it, guys. I'm going to head out. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or night. And I will catch everybody this Sunday in the next stream. So until next time, guys, thank you and take care.